What do some of these pictures have in common? Hey guys, welcome to Everything Business. Today I'll be talking about the double entry system. Yes, the double entry system. I know from the videos that you just, the pictures that you just saw, you would have realized that we have two of everything, right? And that is one fundamental fact of the double entry system. So let's get right into it. The double entry system is a system of bookkeeping whereby one transaction is recorded not once but 2 times, right? Once on the debit side of a double entry account and once on the credit side of a double entry account. All right, so then with the double entry system, we are going to be looking at double entry system for assets, capital and liabilities, the double entry system for the asset of stock or inventory, and we're going to also be looking at the double entry system for expenses and revenues. All right, we already know what assets are, what capital are, and what liabilities are, right? If you do not know, please check out my first video on accounting, introduction to accounting, right? And you will see what those terms mean. All right, so then the double entry system is really simple, really a simple system for you to understand. It is the basis of accounting. If you can understand the double entry system, then you are quite on your way to doing well in CSEC accounting. All right, so what we're going to be doing, right, I'm going to be showing you a double entry account. The double entry account sometimes is called a T account, and there's no secret as to why it is called a T account. This side is what we call the debit side, which is the left side rather is what we call the debit side, and we abbreviate it by writing DR, and the right side is called the credit side. It is abbreviated by a CR. All right, now there are 2 methods of teaching the double entry system of recording. I like to say there is a right way to teach it and there is a not so right way. All right, so I'll teach you the not so right way first. So then the not so right way is what we call the receiving and paying method. Now this is how our double entry normally looks. This is the debit side, this is the credit side. All right, now the general rule is that the debit side is called the receiving side. So the debit side is called the receiving side, the credit side is called the payment side or the paying side, whichever word you want to use. All right, but except for the capital account. So except for capital, except for the capital account. All right, so then when monies or when the account is receiving, right, then we would put it on the debit side. When the account is making a payment, right, then we would put the information on the credit side. And except for the capital, right, for both sides, right? The capital account is a special type of account that we are going to be looking at in more detail. As a matter of fact, for the capital account, it is the opposite of this rule. So for the capital account, right, when the capital account is receiving, we would make a credit entry, and when the capital account is paying, we would make a debit entry. I like to tell my students that a tip for remembering how to record in the capital account is to remember that the capital account is always credited, right? The capital account is always credited. That is what I tell my students to help them to remember how to record in the capital account. All right, so this is the receiving and payment method of recording in the double entry account. it is not the most correct way, right? Because that essentially is not really what the principle of the double entry states, right? And so now I'm going to show you what actually the principle of the double entry states. So let's look at it. All right, so this is, right, the correct way, right, to teach the double entry system. It is important for you to know the type of accounts, right? Assets, expenses, capital, liabilities, revenue. These are some type of accounts that we will have. Then it is important to know how to record in these accounts based on if the account increases or if the account decreases. So if there is an increase in an asset account, then we would debit. So if there's an increase in an asset account, we would debit, and it goes for either fixed asset or current asset. If there's a decrease in an asset account, we would credit. All right. For the expense account, if there's an increase in an expense account, we would debit. If there is a decrease in the credit in our expenses account, we would make a credit entry. For the capital account, if there is an increase in the capital account, we would credit. If there is a decrease in the capital account, we would debit. So do you see the difference already? Right? Liabilities account, if there's an increase, you credit. If there's a decrease, you would debit. And the same for revenue. If there's an increase, you credit, and if there's a decrease, you would debit. All right. So this is the correct way. This is the principle, the correct principle, right? This can help you as an introduction to understanding this, right? And so I know that there are some textbooks who teach about the receiving and the payment method, right, of the double entry to help students to understand, right? Just an introductory phase to help students to understand the principles of the double entry. But this is the correct way. When you go to college or university, this is the way that they will teach you, or this is the way that they will expect you to understand the double entry system. So while you are preparing for your CSEC exams, I would advise that you try your best to understand it this way. And if you understand this way, then you would have no problem in the double entry, making double entry accounts, or making entries in the double entry accounts. So just to revise, type of accounts, we have assets, expenses, capital, liabilities, and revenues, right? To increase for assets and expenses, we debit. To decrease for assets and expense accounts, we would credit. For capital, liabilities, and revenue accounts, to increase them, we would credit, right? And to decrease them, we would debit. All right. So that is basically the principle of the double entry system. Please join me for my next video, where I will be doing some examples, on how to actually make entries in double entry accounts. All right. Thanks for joining Everything Business. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. All good.